What's a life hack so good you almost don't want to share it? Story 1. Last week, my coworker and I were arguing over a project deadline. Instead of continuing to go in circles, I asked, "What does success look like to you?" She paused, then admitted she just wanted clearer communication about progress. Not the deadline moved. Problem solved. It felt like a Jedi mind trick, but really I just let her figure out her own answer. Story 2. My friend swears I'm psychic because I always know what to get her for her birthday. She doesn't realize I keep a running list in my phone of every random thing she's ever said she wanted. Last year she opened a gift and screamed, "How did you know I've been dying for this?" I played it cool, but really I just wrote it down when she mentioned it in passing 6 months earlier. Story 3. A guest came into the hotel last week looking furious. Before she could say a word, I pointed to her bag and said, "That's such a gorgeous purse. Where'd you get it?" She immediately softened and started chatting about her favorite stores. By the end of the conversation, she was thanking me for being so helpful. Compliments. The easiest, most underrated tool in customer service. Story 4. I used to lose my keys constantly. One day, after searching for 20 minutes, I thought, where did I expect them to be? Since then, I've trained myself to always put my keys, wallet, and sunglasses in the first place I would look for them. I haven't wasted time searching for months. It's not about being organized. It's about making my laziness work for me. Story 5. A few months ago, I was at a concert with terrible seats when I spotted a guy handing out ticket upgrades. Most people were barking at him, demanding better spots. When I got to him, I smiled and said, "Could I have 2, please?" He grinned and said, "You're the first person to say, please." Here's 4th row. That night taught me good manners might just be the ultimate life hack. Story 6. My roommate and I used to argue constantly about the dishes. One night, in the middle of a heated debate, I asked, "What would fix this for you?" She stopped and said, "Honestly, just rinse your plates if you leave them in the sink." That was it. A 2-second habit change solved months of passive-aggressive Post-it notes. I felt like I unlocked a cheat code for adulting. Story 7. I've always been awful at remembering where I put things until I heard this trick. If you can't find something, the first place you looked is where it should go next time. It sounds dumb, but it works. Now my wallet always lives by the coffee maker because that's the first place I looked for it 3 months ago. I'm less forgetful and my mornings are way less chaotic. Story 8. Last year, I started keeping a thank you folder in my email. Every time someone sends me a compliment or positive feedback, I save it there. On days when work feels impossible, I pull it up and read through a few messages. It's like having a little pep talk from my past self. Honestly, it's one of the best mental health hacks I've ever tried. Story 9. A couple of weeks ago, I was dealing with a nightmare client who kept demanding crazy changes to our software. Instead of arguing, I asked, "What's the actual problem you're trying to solve?" They admitted they didn't even need most of the changes, just one small adjustment. We made it in 20 minutes, and they acted like we'd invented the wheel. Sometimes all people need is a little nudge to stop overcomplicating things. Story 10. Whenever I go on vacation, I tell my boss I won't have access to email, but they can call me if it's urgent. They never call. I swear, the moment you make people work harder to bother you, they magically figure things out on their own. It's been a game changer for stress-free vacations. Story 11. I've mastered the art of guessing where people want to eat. When my partner and I fall into the "I don't know you picked" trap, I just say, "Guess where I'm taking you." Without fail, they'll rattle off a place they're in the mood for, and I act like I had it planned all along. We both leave happy, and I didn't even have to think. Story 12. A while back, I started buying socks in bulk, all the same color and style. Now, no matter what, any 2 socks I grab make a pair. I used to spend forever sorting laundry, but now I just toss them in a drawer and call it a day. It's weirdly satisfying to never deal with mismatched socks again. Plus, when one gets a hole, it's no big deal. Story 13. I was at a party once, dreading small talk, when someone gave me the ultimate advice. Ask 2 questions, and then validate the other person's response. I tried it immediately. Where are you from? Oh, what brought you here? Then I said something like, wow, that sounds like such a cool experience. They talked for 15 minutes straight, and I just nodded. By the end, they said, you're so easy to talk to. I barely spoke. Story 14. One day, I had to deal with a notoriously cranky coworker. Before she could grumble, I hit her with, hey, I really love the way you organize the office supply shelf. It's so efficient. Her entire demeanor changed, and we ended up having a productive meeting. Compliments are like social WD-40. They smooth over even the roughest personalities. Story 15. I recently started storing frequently used info in my email drafts folder, stuff like my Wi-Fi password, favorite recipes, and even a backup of my resume lives there. It's accessible anywhere, and I never have to dig through apps or notes to find what I need. It's such a small change, but it saves me so much time when I'm in a pinch. Story 16. I've got a foolproof hack for when I don't feel like answering texts. I just don't. It sounds simple, but realizing a text is an invitation to respond, not an obligation, was life-changing. If it's important, they'll follow up. If it's not, they'll survive. The peace of not being glued to my phone is worth the occasional, why didn't you answer? Story 17. A while ago, I started doing a pre-cooking ritual called mise en place. Before I even turn on the stove, I chop, measure, and set up everything I'll need. It's wild how much smoother things go when I'm not frantically searching for spices while something's burning. Plus, I feel like one of those chefs on TV. All I'm missing is the dramatic music. Story 18. I swear by the 3 hobbies rule. One for creativity, one for fitness, and one for socializing. For me, it's drawing, bouldering, and board game nights. Since I started this, I always have something fun to look forward to, even during tough weeks. The hardest part is stopping myself from evangelizing about it because I don't want my favorite climbing gym getting overcrowded. Story 19. My dad has the ultimate excuse hack. Back in college, we were at a family party when he announced, well, I have to get my son home to study. I didn't even have a test, but we left. Later, he admitted he's been using me as an excuse to leave boring events for decades. I can't even be mad. It's genius. Story 20. I read somewhere that if you look for something and it's not in the first place you check, that's where it should live from now on. Since adopting this system, I've lost way fewer things. My keys go in the bowl by the door, my glasses sit on my nightstand, and my headphones are in the desk drawer. It's not about being neat. It's about future me not cursing present me. Story 21. I've cracked the code for stress-free vacations. I tell work I won't have email access, but they can call if it's urgent. Guess what? No one ever calls. It's like people suddenly realize their emergency can wait. The first time I tried this, I spent a full week sipping margaritas without a single interruption. Now it's my go-to move every time I take time off. Story 22. My secret for avoiding arguments? When someone's ranting, I'll throw in a little, "You're right about that," or "I don't disagree with you there." It's like magic. Their defenses drop, and suddenly they're way more willing to hear me out. I don't even have to fully agree. I just find a tiny piece of common ground. It's negotiation 101, but it works wonders in everyday life. Story 23. I started keeping a stash of greeting cards from gift shops. Every time I pass one, I grab a couple for birthdays, holidays, or thank you notes. Now, whenever I need a card, I don't have to make a last-minute dash to the store. It's such a small thing, but it's saved me so many panicked trips. Plus, I look like I'm always on top of things. Story 24. One time, I tried the guess where I'm taking you trick on my mom. She's notoriously indecisive about food, but when I asked her to guess, she immediately said, Italian. I acted like it was my plan all along, and we were eating garlic bread within the hour. It's basically a Jedi mind trick for people who can't make up their minds. Story 25. I've started smiling at people just a little longer than usual. It sounds cheesy, but holding that extra second makes it feel more genuine. The other day, I did it to a barista who looked totally stressed, and they gave me a free drink for being so nice. I wasn't even fishing for a reward, it just works. A good smile can open more doors than you'd think. Story 26. I have a weird little life hack that works every time. When someone's being difficult, I just ask, what does a solution look like to you? People love to argue, but as soon as they have to define an actual solution, they either realize they don't have one or offer something totally reasonable. I used it last week with my boss, and now they think I'm a genius problem solver. Story 27. My roommate and I always used to lose the TV remote, until I decided to apply the where you look first rule. The last time we found it under the couch, I declared that's where it officially lives now. We put a little tray under there, and now when someone loses it, we all know exactly where to check. It's not about being organized. It's about embracing chaos in a productive way. Story 28. A few months ago, I decided to buy 30 identical pairs of socks. No more sorting, no more mismatched sets, and no more spending 5 minutes looking for a pair in the morning. Now I just grab any 2 socks and they match. I'm not saying this hack changed my life, but it's easily in my top 3 best decisions ever. Story 29. I once gave a grumpy coworker a compliment just to survive the workday, and it completely backfired, in the best way. I told her I liked her earrings, and suddenly she was showing me pictures of her dog, asking how my weekend was, and being nice. It was like I'd cracked her code. Now compliments are my go-to trick for handling difficult people. Story 30. I keep a folder in my email with all the thank yous and compliments I've ever received. Whenever I'm having a bad day, I'll pull it up and remind myself that at least some people think I'm doing great. It's like my own little emotional support archive. Honestly, I don't know why more people don't do this. It's a mood booster in under 5 seconds. Story 31. I have a designated spot for everything I lose the most. Keys, wallet, sunglasses. The trick isn't being organized. It's pure laziness. I just put those things in the spot I instinctively check first. For me, keys go in the kitchen bowl, and my sunglasses are always on the window ledge. It's not about effort. It's about future me not hating past me. Story 32. At work, I started doing this thing where I make my coworkers feel like they're the smartest person in the room. Last week, someone was pushing this overly complicated solution, and instead of shutting it down, I asked, "What made you think of that?" They lit up, explaining it in detail, and eventually realized a simpler approach would work better. I barely said a word, and they walked away thanking me. Story 33. I accidentally learned the power of being polite at a concert once. The guy handing out ticket upgrades was swarmed by people demanding better seats. When I got to him, I just smiled and said, "Could I have 2, please?" He paused, shuffled through the tickets, and handed me 4th-row seats, saying, "You're the only one who said please." Manners, people, they work. Story 34. Last year, I stumbled across the mise en place method for cooking, where you prep everything before you start. I used to chop onions while the oil was already burning, but now I set up like a cooking show, ingredients prepped and lined up. It's weirdly calming and makes me feel like I've got my life together, even if I don't. Story 35. I've stopped answering calls from unknown numbers, and my spam calls have almost completely disappeared. Apparently, a lot of these are just testing to see if your number's active, so they can sell it to more spammers. By ignoring them, it's like I've dropped off their radar. Now I get maybe 1 spam call a month, and I didn't even have to download an app. Story 36. Whenever I'm stuck in a conversation that's going nowhere, I casually ask, "What would the perfect solution look like to you?" It's wild how effective this is. Last week, my friend was ranting about a group project, and I dropped that line. She stopped, thought for a second, and realized all she wanted was better communication. Boom. Problem solved. It's like a reset button for arguments. Story 37. I recently started keeping a small notebook of people's random wishes. My coworker once mentioned she'd love a particular coffee mug, so I wrote it down. Months later, I got it for her birthday, and she acted like I'd read her mind. It's not psychic powers, it's just a notebook. But I'm happy to let people believe I'm some gift-giving wizard. Story 38. I don't cook much, but I swear by the garbage bowl hack. Instead of running back and forth to the trash can while chopping, I toss all the scraps into a bowl. By the end of cooking, cleanup is just dumping the bowl. It saves so much time and keeps my kitchen from looking like a crime scene halfway through. Story 39. The other day, I complimented a super cranky customer on her scarf as she walked into the store. She softened instantly and started chatting about her weekend plans instead of complaining about the line. It's amazing how far a simple, "That looks amazing on you," can go. Compliments are free, but the results feel like cheating. Story 40. I've discovered the ultimate sock system. One style, one color, and a million pairs. I used to spend way too long matching socks after laundry, but now every single one matches. If one gets a hole, I toss it without a second thought because there are always more. It's the simplest thing, but it feels like I've unlocked laundry nirvana. Story 41. I've started using the Ask Why trick during arguments, and it's pure magic. My partner and I were butting heads over weekend plans when I asked, "Why is this so important to you?" Turns out, they just wanted a break from their usual routine. Once I knew that, it was easy to compromise, and we actually had a great time. It's like hacking into someone's brain and finding the cheat codes. Story 42. I have this habit of telling people, "Guess where we're going," when I can't decide on a restaurant. Without fail, they'll guess a place they're in the mood for, and I'll go, "Yep, you got it." They're happy. I didn't have to think, and it feels like a win-win every time. The best part is they always think I planned it out, but really I'm just winging it. Story 43. At work, I started keeping all my passwords, quick notes, and random ideas in my email drafts folder. It's like having my brain in one place, and I can access it from any device. The other day, I needed an old reference number while at the DMV, and boom, it was right there. It's such a simple system, but it feels like a productivity superpower. Story 44. I've noticed that if you give people a genuine smile, they're way more likely to be nice back. Last week I smiled at a guy while holding the door for him, and he ended up covering my coffee order because "you made my day." It's wild how something so small can create such big ripple effects. Smiling is like the original life hack. Story 45. My dad once told me the first place you look for something is where it should live. I didn't believe him until I kept losing my AirPods and realized I always check the coffee table first. Now that's where they stay, and I haven't lost them in weeks. It's such a tiny change, but it's saved me so much frustration. Story 46. I have a foolproof way to leave any awkward situation without looking rude. I just say, "I'd love to stay, but I have an early morning." Nobody ever questions it. The best part? It works at any time of day. I once used it to escape a never-ending brunch, and no one batted an eye. Story 47. My biggest cooking hack is cleaning as I go. It used to look like a tornado hit my kitchen every time I made dinner, but now I wash dishes while things simmer and wipe counters in between steps. By the time I'm done eating, there's barely anything left to clean. It makes me feel like one of those responsible adults I always assumed had their lives together. Story 48. I once saw someone generate a Wi-Fi QR code for their guests, and it blew my mind. Now I have one printed and taped inside my apartment, so whenever friends ask for the password, they just scan it and connect instantly. No more repeating capital X lowercase g 7 not 1 while people mistype it 5 times. Story 49. I started saying "good to see you" instead of "nice to meet you" in case I've met someone before and forgot. It saved me from so many awkward "we've actually met before" moments. One time, a guy acted super happy that I remembered him, and I just rolled with it. No idea who he was, but I'll never get caught slipping. Story 50. Whenever I need someone to agree with me, I start by nodding as I talk. It's weirdly effective. I once convinced my friend that trying a new restaurant was his idea just by subtly nodding while I suggested it. By the end of the conversation, he was hyping it up like he discovered it himself. I just sat back and enjoyed the meal. Story 51. I've stopped answering the door unless I'm expecting someone. It was life-changing. No more surprise sales pitches, no more awkward neighbor chats when I'm in pajamas, and definitely no more mystery packages that aren't even mine. If it's important, they'll call or leave a note. If not, I just pretend I'm not home. Story 52. I keep a stash of blank greeting cards for every occasion. Birthday, covered, wedding, got it. Random thank you? No problem. It makes me look way more thoughtful than I actually am because I never have to panic buy a card at the last minute. People think I'm super prepared, but really I'm just lazy in advance. Story 53. I've been using the 2 questions and a validation trick in conversations, and people think I'm the best listener ever. Someone will tell me about their weekend. I'll ask a follow-up, then say, "Wow, that sounds amazing." They talk for 20 minutes and I barely say a word. By the end, they're convinced we had a deep, meaningful conversation. Story 54. I once told my boss I had to leave at 4 p.m. every day to pick up my kid. I don't have a kid. But ever since, meetings magically end on time, and nobody questions why I pack up the second the clock hits 4. It's my favorite harmless lie, and it's given me back my evenings. Story 55. I buy socks in bulk. One brand, one color, all identical. No more sorting, no more mismatched pairs, and if one gets a hole, I just toss it without thinking. My laundry game is now foolproof, and I can't believe I ever lived any other way. Story 56. I've mastered the art of getting people to pick where they want to eat without them realizing it. Instead of asking, "Where do you want to go?" which always leads to, "I don't know, you pick," I just say, "Guess where I'm taking you." They immediately blurt out what they're craving, and I just go, "Yep, you got it." Works every time, and I never have to make a decision. Story 57. At work, I started asking difficult people, "What problem are you actually trying to solve?" instead of just saying no to their ridiculous requests. 9 times out of 10, they stop and realize they don't even need what they were demanding. It's saved me so much energy, and now people think I'm some kind of efficiency guru when really I'm just redirecting their nonsense. Story 58. I stopped explaining myself when I say no to things, and it's been life-changing. If someone asks me to do something I don't want to do, I just say, "Sorry, I can't." No excuses, no long-winded explanations. Turns out, most people don't actually care why. You just have to say it confidently and they move on. Story 59. I once complimented a notoriously grumpy coworker just to see what would happen. "Hey, I love your handwriting," I said when she left a note on my desk. She looked shocked, then smiled, and now she greets me with a cheerful, "Good morning," every day. It's like I hacked her personality with one sentence. Compliments are free and they work like magic. Story 60. I started keeping a folder of positive emails and compliments from coworkers. Whenever I'm having a bad day or feel like I'm bad at my job, I open it up and read through them. Instant mood boost. It's like my own personal highlight reel, and I highly recommend it.